This is essentially very early stage of Bambara Groundnut.
Bamboo, or what's it called?
Bambara Groundnut. This is the Sutton Bonington campus of Nottingham University, and these are a series of new glasshouses which have just been built, which are very controllable in terms of things like temperature, carbon dioxide, light, shading. So the idea with these is really to be in a position to replicate some of the tropical environments in particular that allow us to do quite detailed and very controlled experiments trying to understand the genetic basis and the physiology behind some of these underutilised crops, which have potential to improve food security in particular regions, but at the moment aren't exploited as much as they could be. The original name, Bambara, is actually a tribal name, but it's commonly known as Bambara Groundnut. It's actually a vigna, so it's Vigna subterranea, which has been grown in Africa natively for thousands of years, but to some extent was displaced when peanut was introduced from South America. Now, the reason we're interested in this particular species is this species has quite good drought tolerance. It's very similar to peanut in terms of how it looks. It's a bit rounder than peanut. It has less oil than peanut does, but it has higher protein. So it's used in a number of ways. It's quite often actually taken before it's fully mature and eaten raw after boiling, or it's potentially converted into things like roast peanuts effectively. It's used as a weaning milk in some countries, and also more recently people have been experimenting with using it for flour, as a partial flour replacement. It actually fixes its own nitrogen from the atmosphere. So particularly in poor farming areas, in poor soils, in subsistence farming, cost of nitrogen fertilizers, particularly artificial ones, is actually prohibitive. This is also grown very broadly in Africa at low levels, so it's something that has survived being completely neglected. It's got characters that the people want, and it's got characters that suit it. The question we're asking, in a sense, is does it have potential to be more than just a subsistence farm food? One of the things with underutilised crops is they often have some downsides. There is an issue in particular in terms of day length. If you put it in 12 hours, it will flower and then it will actually generate pods in the same way that peanut does, really. But if you put it in 14 hours, it will still flower, but most varieties will actually probably not set much in the way of pods. So there's a requirement for the light signal to be a certain length to go on to the next stage of development. Around equatorial countries, it's not really an issue because the day length is essentially 12 hours. But there are other places where it's also grown, because you can also get 12 hours by timing when you plant it. If people are growing immediately after rains, which is when it's often planted, if the timing of the rains is off so that you don't get 12-hour photoperiod when you actually get through to the podding stage, then often the yields can be quite erratic or actually just not happen. There's been research on this particular crop for about 18 years in Nottingham with a whole range of partners worldwide. And in particular, the most recent batch of research has identified material that we believe to be photoperiod insensitive. So it's not affected by this requirement for light. So one of the things we're doing at the moment is we're making controlled crosses to try and bring that trait into other land races. And hopefully from those land races we can select things that we could grow in the Mediterranean or we could grow in South Africa, but the timing in terms of rains, in terms of rain-fed agriculture, may actually be a lot more suitable, so we may get much better yields and much more stable yields. We're doing a range of things in this greenhouse. We have a controlled cross between two different parents where we think we have a number of interesting traits variable. So what we're trying to do with that controlled cross is really to understand the genetics underlying those traits. I think that there's an intrinsic need to diversify our food sources. At the moment, 60% of calories that people eat worldwide come from 3 cereals. If we have a major disease problem, or we have just in terms of climate change, changes in the environment so that people can't grow that crop anymore, then we really have to have alternatives.
Do you ever eat these nuts?
Yeah, I actually don't have some here, but our Indonesian student brought back some fried snacks that they actually sell on the markets. And it's like peanut. The texture's a little bit different because it has less oil, but it's a very open texture. I actually quite like it. So I would eat it. So